Just taking a inventory, I guess. Throw my bedding on the side so I would be on a video or something. There. I finally used the light on this after a long time. That was on clearance at Bed Bath & Beyond some years ago. I was just in there to grab this stand. Turn the screen off on the phone. What am I looking for? This. You know, after reading this book for so many years, I think I've finally found the starting point of it. You know, there's 48 chapters in the 48 Laws, and the most annoying is the first one. You know, people always start there. You know, and of course the last one says, don't have a structure. The last chapter says, constant change, you know. Mercury, the winged messenger, power of formlessness. So, I think hidden in this book, of all 42 chapters, 48, is chapter 42. And it's going to be the first observance right at the beginning in the story of the city-state of Athens. And I guess that's where Athena gets her name. And let me move some of this stuff. Just like organizing and reorganizing. Keyword is no loose ends. I don't know if I hate that tripods and stuff like a tripod never really point down. So the story over here is the wolves and the sheep. Everybody knows that story from Aesop's Fables in the 6th century BC. So the story we're talking about is from the 4th century BC. And just so I don't run on and on like a run-on sentence, Grandmaster Spam, is this. One sentence kind of jumped out at me. And it's the song from Nine Inch Nails, Head Like a Hole. If the title doesn't sound familiar, the band ought to, but it's a song everyone knows. Every band's got like 2 good songs. One of Nine Inch Nails' good songs, in my opinion, or at least most well known, is what I mean, is head like a hole. So this one sentence, he wanted to rise above the group they should have served. Wait, who wanted to? Okay. Individuals who wanted to rise above the group that they should have served. Rise up above the group you serve. That's pretty awesome, in my opinion. So that, you know, piqued my attention. And, damn it, there's a bug, like a flea. I don't know if I accidentally crushed it or something. Now I gotta go let it out. Oh, it just jumped on me. Oh no. That's their attack mode, is all aggression. But this one friggin' story here, it's not just usually the story part is boring, it's just the analysis is interesting. The interpretation part. And then the keys to power are even more interesting. Even more interesting than the keys to power is just the, here's the keys to power. Trying to make sense of it. Making even more sense and more interesting is the image. A flock of fatted sheep. Do not waste precious time trying to steal a sheep or two. Aim at the shepherd. Okay, everybody knows this. That's more than a fable. But the reversal is always the key. Of course, some chapters don't have reversals. And the only notes that I've made in this is checking off the ones, leaving without check marks, the ones that cannot be mastered. So 43, the very next one couldn't be mastered. But this story is so interesting about ancient Greece and, you know, citizens in the most, man, that's so funny. It says petty tyrants. Right after this, in my YouTube recommended videos to watch, is a channel named The Tyrant Terminator. And I don't know what to say other than on Saturday Night Live last Saturday, they had a sketch when Kenan, not Kenan Ivory Wayans, Kenan from Kenan and Kel, Kenan, wow, he's got like the most mundane last name, I can't remember what it is, but he calls all the ladies, you know, ladies in the sketch, and this guy on this channel, the Tyrant Terminator, I think it's called the TTA, man, I wasn't gonna mention it, but it's like, you know, I'm kind of like auditing my room right now, taking an inventory, and he does this. I've seen a lot of people do this. It's so, you know, dangerous to mention. It's like there's not a lot of topics that are like dangerous, but that First Amendment auditing stuff, I don't think I'd ever have the courage to do it, and it's too, you know, I try to get in early on stuff. I try not to jump on a bandwagon, although even though I was pretty early in VR, virtual reality, I wouldn't have considered myself now after virtual reality video games, I'm like a full-blown video game nerd. Like, I always thought I knew to my core I was a video game nerd from elementary school. You know, when it became cool to have a PlayStation all of a sudden, I was like, that's me. I'm a video game nerd. But with this virtual reality stuff, it's gone to a whole nother level. And I was just going to use virtual reality to remotely control my computer to pull up this book and go over it that way. For instance, you know, I'm trying to make my own virtual reality. I think behind this desk, a bunch of stuff. Like the cat had knocked some stuff down. Like, there's something in here that looks like a cat tooth that I just dropped in here. cat finds these little pieces. I don't know what that piece is. It's like a pearl. I mean, it's not, but it's like a cat tooth. I don't know where she finds these things. Even though I have some opossum bones somewhere. I don't think they're in here. They might be in this other wooden box. This is my computer desk for the other room. Now it's in here. I have a large collection of these reflectors. Yeah, here's the possum bones. I wrapped up the possum bones in this. And I think my mom threw away, I had a huge stash of like 8 possums that had died under the deck. Or not under the deck, but under the shed. That's all the stuff the cats knocked off. There's like a sock back there, a water bottle, a couple of pencils, and a phone screen. Speaking of which, I left my iPhone 5C wound with its charging cable so I wouldn't lose it. Guess what happened? I had it wound with the charging cable, and over some months, 6 months, I pulled it out, unwrapped it, and that popped the screen out of it. It's like completely ruined. Like the phone is completely ruined. But behind there, if I can reach back there, I have a screen, or just the panel of a phone. That feels like incredibly dangerous. And these metal wires are so sharp. And it's 2 of my parents' mirrors that they got as a wedding gift. My mom was gonna throw them away. I was gonna try to use that as a reflector to see behind me riding my scooter. I still might, but you know, always prided myself on thriftiness. Got this on Black Friday 10 years ago for $200. 50-inch TV. This was just before the smart TV revolution. This was not inherited, but my grandmother used to watch this TV. When she upgraded to a larger one, I think so. Actually, no, I don't know. It's a long story, but why should I have that TV when I could just play video games on this? And so, I don't know, it's such a freaking long story, but, wasn't I just going to read from this book? I hear something falling. Oh, it's those bones. Man, it talks about how they had a ritual expulsion from Athens, like every year. People would vote on the citizens that they wanted banished for 10 years from the city-state of Athens. And one year there was like a real vulgar guy who was entertaining with his vulgarity, but he offended so many more people than he entertained. So he was waiting biding his time to so his name was Hyperbolus. He was the city's most worthless citizen. I'm just gonna sit on the damn floor. I wish I'd turn the light on, I don't know. He was the city's most worthless citizen, and he didn't care what anyone thought of him. He slandered whoever he disliked, whomever. He amused some but irritated many more. In 417 BC, Hyperbolus saw an opportunity to stir up anger against the 2 leading politicians of the time, Alcibiades and Nicias. I can't even spell those, let alone pronounce them. He Hyperbolus. So here's what I love about Greek. Athens is Greek, I think, where Athena gets her name. I don't see a picture, I just see a word, just a name. And so I can identify with that, but compared to motion pictures, and as they were called, the talkies after the silent film era, it's not really the same. It's like I can identify with anybody that I see, but it wasn't always like that. I would only identify with people that, for some reason, they were really persuasive or charismatic, or I could see myself in them. But the best form of charisma, that's what The Art of Seduction, the sequel to this, is all about, is being able to see yourself in anyone. So studying Greeks is the way to go. It's not just this Hyperbolus guy. There's also Politus, like the word polite. I don't know if that's where we get that, but Politus is really interesting. Oh, he's a Greek god, but it wasn't a person. Maybe it was a person, I don't know. But long story short, this seems to be how politicians get their rise. And it's like, as Hyperbolus saw an opportunity to stir up anger against two leading politicians of the time, A and N. Alcibiades and Nicias. Hyperbolus hoped that one of the two would be ostracized, and voted out during this. That was what voting was when they had this democracy. Before that, it was like Plato's Republic, and then they created this democracy thing. So Hyperbolus hoped that one of the two would be ostracized, and that he would rise in that man's place. His campaign seemed likely to succeed. The Athenians disliked Alcibiades' flamboyant and carefree lifestyle and were wary of Nicias' wealth and aloofness. They seemed to ostracize one another. But Alcibiades and Nicias, although they were otherwise enemies, pooled their resources and managed to turn the ostracism on Hyperbolus instead. Hyperbolus' obnoxiousness, they argued, could only be terminated by banishment. I'm like switching out the he and they for these guys' names just so I don't forget. His obnoxiousness, they argued, could only be terminated by banishment. Earlier sufferers of ostracism had been formidable, powerful men. Hyperbolus, however, was a low buffoon, and with his banishment, the Athenians felt that ostracism had been degraded, and so they ended the practice for nearly 100 years. That had been one of the keys to keeping the peace within Athens. I would assume that anyone listening couldn't follow that because the way I was reading it, but that's so powerful that they used to only like vote out big powerful people who were very well known, but this guy was like a lowly commoner, the everyman. And when he got banished, following all these other guys to get banished, it's like, wow, that happened in the 4th century BC. So 400 years later, what common man who was part of the common people was quote unquote banished from society, and then they ended the practice that for nearly 100 years had been one of the keys to keeping the peace for 100 years. So then I think that happened again, with Jesus Christ, and that 2,000 years later is that they had stopped that practice. So the ancient Athenians had social instincts unknown today. The passage of centuries had blunted them. So, the ancient Athenians had social instincts. That's what Robert Greene's new book is all about.
when I say new, it's almost 10 years old now. I still haven't read it, but I've checked out whatever audiobooks are available on YouTube. The Laws of Nature. And so the interpretation goes on to say, within any group, trouble can be traced to a single source. So if somebody finds themselves like me, unhappy, chronically depressed, dissatisfied, you know what I mean, just not feeling good, of course, it's easy to put the blame on some other person from our past, that, oh, this person from my past, blah, 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 blah. Psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, you know, psychological stuff. And when he puts this in his words at the end, separate this person from the group before they become the eye of a whirlpool. It's like, isn't that what do I want to say? Twitter is, and Elon Musk is the eye of a whirlpool, right? It's just, wow. Let one person suffer so that the rest can live in peace. I'm like, what? What am I reading here? That harkens back to law number 10, infection, avoid the unhappy and unlucky. So when I say that he wrote 42 first, the core key idea of the 48 Laws of Power is this story. Because Robert Greene's major was it in literature? Ancient literature. And specifically the fall of the Greeks. And when lockdown started in 2020, he started his YouTube channel, his first video blog was about ancient Greece. And he has this big book. He's like, this book I read, I had to learn an ancient language that doesn't exist, ancient Greek, just to be able to understand this. That's how, how shrouded in mystery this concept is of democracy and republics. And so the Flash of Genius is a movie that I watched, I think it's from like 2008 or so, about the guy who invented a windshield wiper on a car. Has to have a flash of genius. This 42 is the flash of genius. And because it harkens back to number 10, infection, avoid the unhappy and unlucky. On page 76, this is where it starts. Okay, number 1, and I'm going to say number 1, I mean number 10. And also, I think number 3. Chapter 3 is when of course, smoke screens. So, in chapter 3, he says, use smoke screens to disguise your intentions. So he's telling, Robert Greene is telling, like, the secrets of statecraft here in this book. That's his actions. Use smoke screens to disguise your actions. Deception is always the best strategy. And conceal your intentions. I always get that confused. Always get that confused with crush your enemy totally, okay? Because the ending of the chapter 42, I keep reiterating, 42 is in the reversal. Any harm you do to a man should be done in such a way that you need not fear his revenge, writes Machiavelli. And then it goes on in the next paragraph talking about Andrew Johnson, Abraham Lincoln's successor, and Ulysses S. Grant. Stuff is so interesting to me. Yeah, I just wanted to make a record of that. This book, the book that keeps on giving or something, teaching. All right. And there was something from 33 Strategies. Robert Greene tells in one of his early interviews with wow, I can't think of his name now. I will be able to after this, but I'm not going to open that. That's Possum Bones. Barry Kiplick, or Robert Greene interviewed by Barry Kiplick or Kubrick or something like that. Just a little guy, has a little show in California, a little talk show, and I can't remember what interview and I think I have this right, but he mentions a story of there was a guy who was kind of like the first action hero. You know, he was like if in the 1980s the action heroes were like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and on and on. This guy was like that in, I don't know, probably Medician times, of the medieval times, in you know, Renaissance Italy or whatever. But there was one guy who saved like the whole war that was going on, and the city-state, I think that Italy was broken into city-states, kind of like ancient Greece. To reward the guy for ending the war, they killed him and made him a saint. So they killed that guy and made him into a saint. And I don't know what saint it was, and it's just such a story of that. That's kind of even more of a key concept of what this book is. And I'll have to do a lot of reading to find that, but I mean, I guess that's the end of this blog. I don't know. End of this blog. Oh, this is from Tampa, Florida. Oh my God. That's where my grandpa, his last residency was. This is his box of cigars. For the look, he didn't light it. Yeah, that's real interesting. Anyways, I'll go ahead and end that video.